I never bought into the whole socialism and communism thing because it's giving daddy issues. That's what it sounds like to me. It's giving naive housewife that wants a husband who does everything. She doesn't have to think, right? Oh, he pays all the bills. He knows where everything is. I don't even know which bank our mortgage is in. That's the energy that communism and socialism give to me. The people who are followers of that. And the reason I say this is because, I'm an eldest daughter. Okay, I had to be hyper independent. I didn't have the whole I didn't have the whole support system, social circle thing where I could trust my family like that. Like that wasn't a thing for me. Okay, I had to figure it all out. I had to trust myself. And if you have that, that's wonderful. It's wonderful that you had a support system, that you have people you can trust that way, that are people you can depend on. But the thing is, you're extending that outside of your family system into your politics. And that's a problem because it doesn't just affect you. So, you've been raised a certain way where you can depend on people to take care of things for you and you don't have to think about it. And so realistically speaking, you have to be honest with yourself about the fact that there's a level of helplessness that creates sometimes where you don't have the resiliency to push past certain things or to deal with certain things. You can just pass it off to someone else. All right. And I'm not saying that just because you had a support system, you're helpless, because not everyone is. Some people are really raised to take care of themselves. But a lot of you have this mindset. And I also think that it has a lot to do with people who didn't have a father figure around, didn't have that support system, and they yearn for it. And so they're seeking that in their politics. Okay. And I can't abide by that. Okay. I believe, again, I've said this before, but I believe in social services. I believe that we need to have some kind of a social safety net. Socialism and a social safety net are not the same thing. Okay. But this whole idea that you're just going to hand all this power over to the government and they're going to do the right thing, you're going to hand it to people you like, and they're going to do the right thing by you. You're just going to trust them blindly and hope for the best, which is the mentality that so many of you have. I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. When this whole discourse about communism started coming up years ago on Twitter, I was coming out of this high control religion that I was raised in that was politically neutral, not really politically neutral. And I remember, at the time I was learning about politics. I had learned, I knew things, but I wasn't really well informed because I didn't have to be, because my religion said that, I shouldn't be involved in politics. And so when I started seeing this discourse, I was like, but isn't communism bad? Isn't this the one where it always becomes authoritarian and abusive, the socialism and communism? And then, it destroys a country for generations and people are in a state of desperation and despair and they just want to get out of it. Like, how would you keep that from happening? I asked this to people who were promoting communism, and they would say, well, it's always America's fault because America doesn't trade with Cuba. And I'm like, but why should Cuba trade with America if they're anti-capitalist? Like, shouldn't a communist, socialist country be able to stand on its own without communism, without capitalism? If, communism and socialism are just so much better, why would you need to deal with a capitalist country? What's the point? And so, they would be like, well, that's just, there was always some nonsense explanation for it, right? But then I would ask this question, which I never see anyone answering to this day. If communism and socialism are going to work, right? Because you've always said it just doesn't work. How are you going to keep it from being taken over by bad actors? How are you going to keep it from becoming authoritarian and abusive? How are you going to identify the bad actors and stop them before they take it too far? I don't see any discourse around Machiavellianism. I don't see any discourse around psychopathy, sociopathy, narcissism, nothing. All of the things that lead to power structures becoming abusive, because you can blame it on capitalism all you want, but it doesn't matter which political system you put in place. If you're not identifying the people that turn it into a problem, they're all going to be a problem. And at the end of the day, capitalism has been the most beneficial one in the sense that it's allowed more people upward mobility than any other system that has ever been created. And of freedom as well, because it's based on competition. It's supposed to be based on competition. Someone on this app said that we're not really dealing with capitalism right now. We're dealing with corporatism. And I agree with that. Capitalism, if it functioned the way it was supposed to function, would work far better than any other system. All right. And I think that if you're someone who you're afraid of uncertainty, you're someone who really doesn't want to take the reins of your life, or you're afraid to do that, or if it sounds exhausting to you, then capitalism does sound like a bad idea. But then I also begs the question, what do you think is going to happen if the U.S. stops being an imperialist power? Do you think that all these other countries are going to sit back and be like, oh, well, good, now we're all just going to be nice to each other? No, these people are all fighting to be king of the hill. If you are not at the top, you are under someone else's oppression, under their boots. And I don't care. Yeah, America, had his boots on my neck and this, that, or the other. Listen, there are so many other countries you could move to that are implementing the politics you like, which, by the way, I mean, you could go. A lot of them are inviting you to go over there. So do that. Go and try it out. And that's the other thing, is that I don't see y'all trying out these systems that you guys promote. I don't see you going over there and living that life. You're not standing on business, but you're trying to convince us that we have to abide by that we should agree with you. Listen, y'all need to face your daddy issues, okay? And stop making it everyone else's problem. I, of course, believe that our country needs to fix a lot of things, but this whole communism, socialism nonsense, y'all aren't prepared. You aren't prepared. You're too naive. You aren't prepared.